Moving on to the glossy paint, we'll start off again by adding some height information. Let's zoom into this area. Make sure that I'm on the glossy paint layer. I'll add a fill. Let's name this pattern. And disable all the channels except for the height information. Instead of adding a mask for the height, this time I'll place a bitmap directly into the height input. So I can either click on the height tab and pick something, but instead I'll go to the shelf under procedurals and pick polygon hexagon tiles and drag and drop it into the height slot. Let's isolate our height channel by hitting C. Let's adjust the UV scale since it's much too large right now. And I'll drag it all the way till it looks good. And let's go ahead and just hit M. Right now it's looking way too strong. So to lower the strength of this, we actually have to go into the height channel opacity. I'm doing this because we placed a bitmap into the height, and the only way to control it afterwards is either using the procedural controls, if there are any, or by adjusting the opacity of the layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this to around 5. Looking at the mesh, I don't want this pattern everywhere. Let's add a black mask, and now I can paint in the areas that I want the pattern to show up. I'll turn on symmetry and paint in the antenna around here. Now, I'm not too worried about hitting the green or blue parts because we have our materials separated into folders. I also want the pattern to show up on the belly portion. This time I'll switch to the polygon fill tool by hitting 4, choose a white color and pick the UV chunk fill. Now it missed a few spots, so I'm going to go ahead and paint those in by switching to the paintbrush by hitting 1. I'll switch to the polygon fill tool, use mesh fill and grab these inner parts. And I'll even go and switch to a 2D canvas to paint in some harder to reach places. Now, as you're painting in the 2D view, it might be a little bit hard to see, but you can also roll the light in the 2D canvas. Again, that's using shift and right clicking. So with the combination of the polygon fill tool and the paintbrush, I was able to get the result that I wanted. Now, you may come into a situation where you want to override the color ID that was used. In this case, I don't want the glossy paint to hit this area or the front part. Now, let's go and view the mask where we have the glossy paint. And when I'm on this mask and try to paint black, it's actually not doing anything. That's because we have this color selection in the mask stack here. Anytime we have an effect on the mask stack, we need to add a paint effect to be able to paint over it. All of your effects are located in the Add Effect dropdown, and we will choose Add Paint. Now I have a new layer on top of my mask stack, and with it selected I can begin painting like you normally would a black mask. You want to think of this paint effect as an empty layer. The great thing about this paint effect is I can use my polygon fill tool to select portions as well. So I'll undo these paints and hit 4, go to the mesh fill mode with a black color and select these areas. Let's go back to material mode. Now these parts are looking gray. That's because they weren't part of the base paint's mask. So let's go ahead and just add them to the selection. I'll go to the base paints folder mask, go to Add Effect, Add Paint, and use the mesh fill with a white color on these gray areas. Always keep in mind that if you have some sort of effect on your stack, like an MG mask editor or color selection, and you want to paint on top of it, you need to add the paint effect to do so. Using this method allows you to work non-destructively, as you can either enable or disable any of the effects at any time. In our next lesson, we will further explore the paint effect and how it can be used in conjunction with smart masks.